Welcome to the Solid Verbal. And now, Dan and Ty.
Dan Rubenstein, welcome back. Welcome back for Ballerhood. Go back and listen to the Big Ten Part 1, which was our last episode, which dropped on Sunday. Today's episode is, I guess, Team Previews Part 1, Big Ten Preview Part 2. Whichever makes more sense to you. Yeah. On today's episode, we're doing some team previews. We're talking Penn State, Ohio State, your Oregon Ducks,
yes, sir,
your Michigan Wolverines, the Indiana
Michigan
Hoosiers.
Wolverines?
Well, you've married into Michigan lore.
That's true.
We've got Indiana, we've got Illinois, Maryland, Northwestern, and Purdue on today's episode. So we split the conference right down the middle, 9 and 9. We're going to have the other 9 on our next episode, my friend. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. I live not terribly far from Northwestern. One of my younger brothers went to Purdue. This is a very Rubenstein-centric episode, and I thank you for that, Ty.
It's a very personal episode to me as well, talking about Penn State, but
yep,
definitely more points of intersect here with the Rubenverse. Is that what we call it?
Of course we do, yes.
Hit follow, hit subscribe if you're new here. Want to get more episodes like this, get more preview content. This is a big show for us. This show always does really, really well, so I'm excited to be here with you talking through all these teams. Basically, what we've got represented in our crop today is the upper crust of the Big Ten. And having done this show for so long, we have amassed quite a following in the Big Ten universe. So this is typically one that people are interested in. We got to make sure we're on our game. We've got some sounds loaded up here on the board. We will talk through these in somewhat painstaking detail, at least give you the flavor of what to expect this year in the Big Ten season. And before I go any further, it's verballers.com.
Yes, Ty, yes.
You may be tired of hearing me. Actually, why don't you talk about verballers.com? Give the people the pitch, because I always do it, and I always worry people are afraid of me or are sick of me giving the pitch.
Here's my pitch.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay, verballers.com. Real easy. Few seconds. It directly supports the show. It helps us keep the lights on. We need your help to keep things going, and so that is extremely important to us, and we require the ability to interact with everybody who supports the show on Discord, because it makes us feel very cool, even though we're not.
We're not. We're definitely not.
And so it strokes our egos very nicely, but also it happens to be the coolest group of college football fans online and huddling up football term in a very cool place on Discord. So that's the sales pitch for verballers.com. $5 a month, $10 a month tiers, and help support an independently owned college football mega program.
Operation? Yeah.
Operation.
Something.
Sure.
You can also sign up for free if you just want to get the flavor for it.
That's true.
You don't have to pay anything. You can sign up for free if you want to, but verballers.com. verballers.com. That's it.
Get the mini ice cream spoon that you get at your ice cream parlor just for that taste.
Just the taste.
Just for the taste.
Absolutely.
Hey, real quick, it'd be great if you could consider subscribing to the YouTube channel down below. It really helps us out.
All right, that's it. That's the pitch.
Yeah.
Now it's time to talk about the Big Ten. Right. Like I said, go back and listen to part 1 where we broke these teams up into tiers. It's not a perfect representation of my upper tier and my middle tier, and like we're kind of mixing and matching here a little bit, but I think it's a pretty good sample size.
Sure.
Where do you think it makes the most sense to start?
Defending champ. Not of the conference. Defending national champion. How about that?
Why don't we talk about the Ohio State Buckeyes, Dan?
Yes.
Ohio State Buckeyes, 14-2 last year, won the national championship. The over-under this year is 10 1/2 wins. There are a few notable changes that we should bring up. New offensive coordinator in Brian Hartline, because Charles Chip Kelly,
You're good.
decided he wanted to go to the NFL. And then, of course, because of the mini fallout, whatever you want to call it, with Jim Knowles, he leaves, departs for Penn State, which we'll get to here, I'm sure, momentarily. In steps Matt Patricia. Those are the two new coordinators, Dan. If we start right there, what is your reaction to those two names?
Underwhelmed, but open to success. Brian Hartline had this chance a couple years ago. It was still, I believe, Ryan Day calling plays, but Brian Hartline was more responsible for the offense in general rather than just the receiver room. And Ohio State's offense fell off a bit. That was the Kyle McCord year, and by fell off, they were merely good, not excellent, but the bar at Ohio State obviously is excellent, and the receiver room is still great at Ohio State, obviously headlined by Jeremiah Smith, the best receiver in the game. And on defense, Matt Patricia, with no relevant college experience recently, if at all, steps in after it not going well in the NFL, both serving as, I think, an offensive and defensive coordinator at various points of his career and head coach, but steps in to help bring, I guess, a little bit of Belichick pixie dust to this defense after Jim Knowles brought just magnificent platinum pixie dust to this defense after he was, I think, given full control midway through, maybe after the Oregon game last year. The defense became unstoppable with high-level NFL talent at all three spots, and he's gone. And I think it's fair to assume that a new offense with a new line, a new quarterback will get there, and a new defense with a new line and new major pieces on all three levels. It would be fair to expect a step back on both sides of the ball, but to what extent? The answer is probably not dramatically so on either side.
Yeah, I agree.
But these hires don't get me all hot and bothered. I'm not sure it matters because ultimately it's a Jimmy's and Joe's sport, but the way Jim Knowles and Chip Kelly teamed up last year, it feels like an obvious step down to go Hartline and Patricia.
I think that's the biggest question I have with Ohio State this year. And Las Vegas may not necessarily share that concern. Ohio State is still a 5-1 favorite, as I said in our last episode, to win the national championship. And you look at the Jimmys and Joes, it's really hard to find a gaping hole on the roster because they've been so damn good on the recruiting trail. The offensive line, I think, is a great example of that. You had 2 first-rounders. They're gone this year. It barely feels like it leaves a dent in the offense now as you look at what is coming back and what is in front of them. So, I mean, clearly they have done extremely well in amassing talent and building up this war chest of guys that can just come in and be killers almost immediately. But the coordinator thing is fascinating to me, because I think you're right to say that the way that they went out aggressively and bringing in Chip, bringing in Jim Knowles, that was a big talking point going into last season. The last time we saw Brian Hartline call offense, they were about 14 points per game worse than they had been the previous year. And it was short-lived. They obviously made a change. I'm curious to see.
Again, I don't think he called the offense.
But he was involved a lot more, and he was listed as offensive coordinator, right?
Correct.
So regardless of how that went down, the last time we saw him in a similar role, the numbers went down pretty drastically. So, and the Patricia hire, I don't really get. I think I'm more curious about the defensive side of the ball than I am the offense because we assume base level competence with this offense, just given all that they've got coming back. They're going to be incredible again. But on the defensive side of the ball, they lose a ton. Like the interior defensive line is one area in particular where I think you would like a little bit more depth. Obviously, they've got like Caleb Downs, some other guys in the defensive backfield that are veterans, Sonny Styles at linebacker. Still plenty of experience.
Davison Igbinosun.
Yeah, even though they're not technically returning a ton of starters, there's still plenty of experience back there, and they'll be okay.
Yep.
Whether you believe in these coordinators or not, there is just so much there that there is a safety net. I don't think any of this stuff is going to fall off, but the Patricia thing left me relatively uninspired as well. Still, the absolute worst case scenario for this team is what? 3 losses?
Absolute worst means what? Michigan, Penn State, and Texas?
Those are the only 3 I could find, unless there's going to be a hidden landmine out there somewhere, a situational play that gets Ohio State after a big game or an injury, but they're so well insulated from a lot of that stuff, especially in the injury side. I mean, it kills everybody, of course. But when you have this much talent, you can plug and play guys the way they can and the way few other teams can. You really do limit the downside of one guy going down and derailing the whole season. So I squinted to try and find more than 3 just to establish a range here. Those are the only 3 that make sense to me. And I think anything more than that is just really a hot take for the sake of being a hot take.
Yeah, I mean, the case for Ohio State as a legit national title contender all season long and into the playoff after winning a Big Ten championship or playing for the Big Ten championship is, I think it's pretty clear. It's Julian Sayin or whoever. Lincoln Kienholz, I guess, would be the other one competing for the job in earnest, but I think a lot of people believe it's going to be Julian Sayin. redshirt freshman, comes in comfortable, in rhythm, forms a relatively easy connection with experienced receivers, an experienced, albeit not crazy experienced in terms of, years started offensive line, adding a top flight left tackle from Rice, that it all works out. That running back is fine. It's what James Peoples and CJ Donaldson are going to be the duo this year. Peoples is internal, CJ Donaldson a transfer. That there's just nothing too arrhythmic about this transition to Brian Hartline, especially like Julian Sayin can meet the moment, and he's had time in the system and time to sort of form a rapport and get in some live action last year in garbage time. Like that, the transition won't be crazy. They are transitioning away from an experienced offensive line, a fifth-year quarterback in Will Howard, fifth-year established winning quarterback in Will Howard, an established duo of running backs, and one of the best offensive minds of the modern era calling plays in Chip Kelly. So you can see it not working just because it's too much change, and maybe Julian Sayin is really good, but fails to meet the moment a couple of times, and there's just a downturn on offense, and they're still probably really good. Defense, I think, is where the concern is realistic, because basically they needed to score like 13 points in the back half of last season to win games. The defense fully dictated everything, and the offense being good was a nice cherry, but the defense was so lights out in dictating what offenses could and couldn't do and keeping them behind the sticks and putting so much pressure on teams. With that experienced defensive line, with the experienced linebackers, the experienced secondary, Jim Knowles just had so much he could do. He had so much in his bag that he could work with. And it's just different this year. There's rotational guys stepping in along the defensive line, a couple of transfers. Sonny Styles is going to be a very good leader. He transitioned from safety to linebacker last year. And the secondary, they've recruited well. There's some experience there. Obviously, Caleb Downs is the most versatile, dangerous defensive player in the country. So that's a great starting point. But if we're going to talk about it on previous conference previews, there's a lot of variables at play, right? You want to minimize the variables short of recruiting like Ohio State has for the last 5 years. So you can go through the schedule if you'd like, but I think the way it doesn't work out is both sides of the ball are merely good and they go 10-2. That's a pretty good number for not working out.
Oh my God, you would take that 1,000 times out of 1,000.
Yeah.
I think I wanted to pose this to you because I was kind of grappling with this as well. And it's kind of a rhetorical question because I know the answer, or at least I know how I would answer it. But
yeah,
how would you define the challenge this year for Ohio State? Is it a season that, again, will be dictated by how well they do in the playoff? Or is it, again, this albatross hanging around Ryan Day's neck about needing to beat Michigan? It's a better Michigan team now. And the game against Michigan this year is in Ann Arbor. So the situation was there for them last year of all years to finally get the monkey off the back and take out Michigan. They couldn't get it done. Now this year, Michigan we'll talk about Michigan here in a bit. Michigan has clearly ramped up, has gotten better across the board. And the game being in Ann Arbor makes it inevitably a little bit harder. So if you're an Ohio State fan, if you're looking at this maybe just as a third party, is success this season truly just getting back to and winning the national championship, or is it beating Michigan?
It's beating Michigan and winning probably one or two playoff games. I think if you were to give Ryan Day truth serum, he would say, we are using 2025 to see exactly what we have to get valuable experience and make a true run in 2026. When you have a redshirt freshman quarterback, first-year coordinators, working in a new full-time with experience offensive line, I think you can tell what a coach and a program believes with how active they are in the portal, how much they're spending in the portal. And Ohio State spent a little bit. I think the left tackle from Rice is a big deal that they went after to sort of fill that hole and shore things up on the outside of the offensive line. But they didn't strike me. And Max Clare is another good name.
Sure.
But I think you're looking at 2026 with Jeremiah Smith's final season, with Julian Sayin having a full year starting or whoever under their belt, working in a lot of the youth this year to get them valuable experience. Look, Ohio State, the goal is always to win the national championship. But in terms of how this roster is constructed and how many variables and I don't think behind the scenes they're saying it's championship or bust given the changes. That's all. So,
which,
they
by the
have
way,
to make the playoff. Make the playoff.
You could have said that last year with all they spent on their roster
of course.
last year.
Last year was championship or bust. Yeah, of course.
Last year they pushed everything in the middle. It was a big talking point before the season. It's part of why Michigan beating Ohio State was such a big deal. It was a huge upset in its own right, but just knowing the stakes for Ohio State, I think flared that conversation up, made it even louder. They had to get it done in the playoffs, and to their credit, they learned a lot from that experience against Michigan, and they were able to circle the wagons, find kind of the version of themselves that I think we were all afraid of going into the year, and they just ripped through everybody in the playoffs. So I give them credit for that. It'll be interesting to see if they're able to build on that momentum at all as we enter this new season, as you said, with so many new variables. They will not have much of an opportunity to get the new guys broken in before the schedule heats up because, Dan, the biggest game of week 1 is Ohio State hosting Texas.
Yes.
First game of the year, right out of the chute, Texas versus Ohio State. That's kind of and for my money, and I know Notre Dame plays Miami, and I'll be interested in that. Ohio State, Texas is the marquee matchup. In the shoe, we'll see how these guys look. As you look through the rest of this thing, though, you've got those 3 big games, I think, spaced out at different points throughout the course of the season. You got the home opener against Texas. You're home against Penn State the first week of November, and then on the road against Michigan, obviously, to close out the regular season. Everyone knows about those games. The ones that I think I am at least intrigued by are some of the other ones that are mixed in. Ohio State should be better than all these teams, but at Washington, at Illinois, at Wisconsin, who knows? Maybe in some upside-down universe, a letdown look-ahead game against Minnesota. They play Minnesota a week after they're on the road against Washington, a week before they're back on the road against Illinois. I'm not necessarily expecting any of these to be losses, but with so much new, it's always a consideration when you're recording a show like this in mid to late July and you're just looking for those points of intrigue, especially with so much that's different.
Yeah, I have no idea who, even like this year's version of last year's game against Nebraska would be, right? That a clearly outclassed inferior opponent who keeps it weird and close late. My easiest, like, you point at the schedule, my guess is Rutgers.
Oh my God!
If Rutgers is
you're so much higher on Rutgers than I am.
Rutgers could go 4-8. I'm just saying situationally.
Okay.
Rutgers has a bye before that game, and Ohio State has Michigan the following week. That's all I'm saying.
Oh my God! I think they're going to murder Rutgers, but fair point.
Were they not losing to Rutgers 2 years ago at halftime?
I understand what you're saying. I'm just not there at all. With this team.
You're squinting, and the infinitesimally small crease between your eyelids is very small. But no, you're not wrong. And here's the other thing. Like, I can say Ohio State's pointing to 2026 when they have more experience, when there's more lockdown in terms of what they know what they do and don't have. Nobody has this roster, depending on how you feel about Clemson. Nobody has a version of what Ohio State had last year this year. Not Alabama, not Georgia, not Oregon, not Texas, depending on how you feel about Clemson. But Clemson was not in the top 12 following the season last year, right?
Correct.
So, depending on how you feel about Clemson. So, I can say Ohio State's pointing to 2026, but like, nobody has that. So, Ohio State might win a national championship with a clearly inferior team to what they had last year. Totally on the table.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, I'm splitting hairs by asking what is the goal of this team. When you have a roster like this, the goal is always to win the title, but
sure,
it is more nuanced, as I'm sure Ohio State fans would attest, especially given the Michigan undercurrent and how there is this burning desire to finally end that losing streak at 4. I've got Ohio State at 11-1. I don't think there's any chance they're beating Texas in week 1 with all they've got new. Of course, it shouldn't come as any great surprise if they do win that game, but I just don't see it. I like Julian Sayin. A lot of people have said glowing things about Julian Sayin.
Right.
I don't see him beating Texas in week 1, but I think they go on a run after that. I think they knock off Penn State when Penn State comes to town, and I do think they get the monkey off their back and knock off Michigan on the road to close out the year. If you go back and listen to the preview, the part 1 preview episode, I've got Penn State then getting revenge on Ohio State in the Big Ten title game,
Right.
which is how they would get to, I guess, 11-2, but they would still be a playoff team in that circumstance. Really, every circumstance I can find here, they're still a playoff team. I just don't see them not making it unless truly everything bottoms out and this takes like a Florida State turn, which it's not going to do.
I admire your confidence that they're not beating Texas with a new starting quarterback, new offensive line, basically new receiving core at home in the shoe.
I know. I like Texas in that game. And people can yell at me in the comments if they want to, but that's just my opinion. I'm not,
by the way,
I'm not in on Ohio State in that game.
Especially the Ohio State defense will have the advantage of there's no tape on what this Ohio State defense will be. Whereas Texas, you kind of have an understanding of what Texas is going to try to do on both sides of the ball, especially because they game planned last year in their final game against Ohio State.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. So we'll see. Ohio State again is loaded to the gills. I would be inclined to go over that 10.5 number. This is still going to be a very, very good team and clearly one that we're going to be talking about, not just for the conference, but for the playoffs as well.
Yep. I have them winning the conference.
I have Penn State winning the conference.
Okay.
Penn State 13-3 a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And if we want to start things off with the coordinator speak, the big hire was Jim Knowles. The huge hire was Jim Knowles, excuse me.
$3 million?
$3.1 million.
Woo!
Tom Allen decides he wants to go to Clemson.
Yeah.
Penn State then is one of the teams that aggressively was pursuing Jim Knowles, and there were a handful of them. But there were some rumors maybe he'd go to Oklahoma. There was some talk maybe he'd go to Notre Dame. There was obviously some talk about maybe Ohio State can find a way to keep him. And then Penn State.
The siren song of the Keystone State. Is that what PA is?
It is the Keystone State.
Yes.
Penn State sort of wormed its way in there and was able to pry Jim Knowles back to his home state right here in good old PA.
There it is.
So that's a big deal. I mean, he is the highest paid coordinator for good reason.
Ever.
I can't say that the defense is going to be better. Don't know that. There are losses on the defensive side of the ball, but they're probably not going to be that much worse. I mean, what an embarrassment of riches you've got at Penn State if you lose a guy like Abdul Carter and you still feel like you're pretty loaded.
Yeah.
I think this is the year, finally, the prophecy comes true, and our guy, Dani Dennis-Sutton, DDS, becomes a household name.
Mm-hmm.
I think Zane Durant in the middle of the line is a real problem. Not the biggest defensive tackle, but he's a problem. They will find ways to use him. Zariah Fisher plays opposite DDS. He's another good one. A lot of experience. He's a senior. I'm hoping we see Max Granville. He's my dude. He's the redshirt freshman who I think could be the next big pass rusher for Penn State. But they've got enough along that line where there will be plenty of guys that they can rotate in and maintain, I think, the level of excellence that they're used to. And it might even go to the next level now with Jim Knowles coaching up this defense. He has proven to be very, very good at knowing his personnel, at being hyper-focused on their attributes, finding ways to put them in the best position to succeed, and moreover, making in-game adjustments to make the defense better and not just be totally caught flat-footed. I mean, every coordinator is in that boat at some point or another, but Jim Knowles has been particularly good at avoiding that. So from a Penn State standpoint, you got to be thrilled with that
and
side
by the
of
way,
things.
he's game planned against the Big Ten past couple of years.
Game planned against the Big Ten, and I think more importantly, and this is something else I know we've talked about in the past, he's a coordinator who knows how to use this arsenal.
Yeah.
He knows how to use guys of this caliber, and he knows how to get the most out of them, which I think is the most exciting. Not to say Tom Allen didn't. I mean, obviously,
top 10 defense.
Abdul Carter was the number 3 overall pick, but I like Jim Knowles a little bit more. I'm okay with this hire. You combine that with now what's going to be year 2 under Andy Kotelnicki, and I think it becomes even clearer why Penn State is such a title contender this year, or at least a perceived title contender. Andy Kotelnicki now having another year with this team, a veteran offense, is, I think, going to be really exciting. Now, the big question is the receiver room, the pass catchers. Who are going to be the pass catchers? They haven't had pass catchers other than Tyler Warren, let's say, for the last 2 years.
Yeah. Receivers specifically, lining up as a smaller than Tyler Warren human.
That's right.
It's been since Parker Washington, really.
not reliably so.
Right.
And they've had some guys that have popped here kind of on occasion. And, I like Damari Evans, who has since gone elsewhere. I wasn't down on all of the personnel, but they were never able to get enough out of that receiver room to really make it a threat. So this year, obviously, in the portal, they went out and they tried to make it more of an emphasis. 3 guys in particular: Kyron Hudson, who comes over from USC, Devontae Ross, more of a speedster, comes up from Troy, and then Trevor Payne, who was more of a later signing, comes down from Syracuse, led Syracuse with receiving yardage last season and had a pretty good year. All those guys portaled in. They've also got Liam Clifford still on the roster, Tyzier Denmark still on the roster. These are guys that, they were pretty excited about at points
that Andy
last season.
Kotelnicki looked at and said, not good enough.
Not good enough. Well, it isn't good enough. It isn't good enough. I mean, they're role players. Certainly, a guy like Liam Clifford is a role player. Tyzier Denmark, I still think, is a guy that they think they can get something out of, but he's still young, and it hasn't materialized yet. So the question is going to be, can they get enough out of this receiver room? Can they figure out a way to replace the lost production of Tyler Warren, who is now playing for the Indianapolis Colts? You cannot build the plane out of him like you could a year ago, so you got to come up with something else. And I don't know if that means we're going to see more of an emphasis on the running attack because of Nick Singleton and Kaytron Allen sticking around and a line with 4 starters back in front of them. I don't know if they're going to try and turn the keys over more to a guy like a Drew Allar, provided he can build rapport with some of those new weapons out wide, or maybe a tight end like Luke Reynolds. We'll see.
Sure.
That, to me, is kind of the big open question about this offense. I have a lot of faith in Kotelnicki coming up with some innovative way to involve his personnel in the best way possible. It seems like he's very good at that, and we know from his time at Kansas that he's actually pretty good at building a good rushing attack.
Definitely.
Last season, we started to see, throughout the course of the year, more and more of those home run plays, those chunk plays that we saw in Nick Singleton's freshman year that went dormant in his sophomore year under Mike Yurcich. They started to come back last year, and that made the offense all the better. So I'm curious to see if they're able to kind of continue on that trajectory, find more ways to put a guy like a Singleton or even Kaytron Allen in positions for those chunk plays, and frankly, what they're going to do to make up for some of that lost production. That's the big, I think, equation that I am watching on offense.
Right. Okay. It's all fair. I mean, this was a team that was a drive away from competing for the national championship last year, and you feel like they've upgraded a defensive coordinator and likely upgraded at wide receiver, though it's not apparent that there's like a receiver of the caliber of other teams they are compared against.
They just, somebody needs to step up. They got to step up. Somebody's got to step up. Somebody's got to make big plays when it counts. Thankfully, we can get into the schedule momentarily. Thankfully, I think it's a schedule that's going to give them some time before they get to that Oregon game at the end of September. It's going to give them some time to maybe figure out against the FIUs of the world who the playmakers could be, should be as part of this offense. But bigger picture, I must have read 5 or 6 different previews. All of them have either Penn State or Texas as their national champion.
Okay.
And so this is like the crescendo moment for Franklin, man. Like, if not now, when is it going to happen? Is it ever going to happen? I saw a couple other rankings looking at position groups nationally. Of like the 7 position groups that we normally judge: quarterback, running back, receiver, lines, all 3 levels of the defense. Penn State's like top 5 nationally in 5 of those 7, the only 2 being wide receiver and I guess linebacker, which we tend not to worry about too much on the Penn State side. So it's not
but
just
there's always guys stepping in.
Yeah, it's not just the high level talent, but also the experience this year.
Sure.
Both with the players and with the staff, that it seems like it's a perfect storm of sorts for Penn State to be in that conversation. And there's a lot of steam on this team. It creeps me out a little bit that everybody's so high on them, but I get it. You go through these, these 2 deeps, and you go through the roster, and you go through what some of, the pundits out there have had to say, and everybody sees. I think actively there were some people who were trying not to see it, but it kind of hits you clear as day that this is a team that is going to be in that conversation, is going to be there all year.
Yeah, I mean, look, as the engineer of the Underthink Express, Penn State should be excellent. They need to pose a threat to defenses stretching the field. They need to find somebody to not fully replace what Tyler Warren was, but approach Tyler Warren, be some sort of facsimile of Tyler Warren. Maybe that's one guy, that's two guys. You mentioned Luke Reynolds and was it Khalil Dinkins?
Khalil Dinkins, more of a blocker, but like Andrew Olesh was their big recruit at the tight end position.
Yeah,
kinda
freshman.
From my neck of the woods here in Lehigh Valley.
Yeah.
So how they incorporate all those guys at the tight end position will be pretty interesting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, look, to oversimplify it, it's how do they look different on the exact same drive that didn't work out against Notre Dame?
Yeah.
Where are the threats on offense? Nobody has any questions about this running game, this offensive line, Drew Allar's arm talent. Nobody has any questions about their recruiting and development on defense and that Jim Knowles is going to be a good defensive coordinator. But at a certain point, hopefully for Penn State's sake, it's during the season and not during the playoff. They're going to be down 3. They're going to be down 5, and they're going to need to drive the field. And is this year's Excelsior our nickname for having a set of plays in crunch time that you can depend on? Is this year's Excelsior better than previous year's Excelsiors? And there's no excuse. There's just Drew Allar's experienced. He's good. The running backs are there, so people are going to have to focus on play action. The offensive line is there. The defense should keep teams under 20 points every week. That's it. It's put up or shut up.
It's put up or shut up. It really is.
The schedule is great for the most part. I mean, they're on the road against, Iowa and Ohio State, but they get Oregon at home, and they have sort of a tune-up time to get, the wheels greased before then, 4 or 5 weeks. That's late September. That'll be a whiteout. That'll be a night game, a night whiteout, which is pretty great for Penn State people. I mean, they have Indiana in a tricky spot, I think. Is that the week after Ohio State?
Yeah, it's sandwich game between Ohio State and Michigan State.
Yeah, and that's Michigan State on the road for the land grant. I don't know, man. It's this year. Is James Franklin again James Franklin? Is James Franklin once again a really good coach who does every single thing really, really well in building a team, in coaching a team, but comes up just short of a team who out-recruits him in Ohio State and out-muscles him in Jim Harbaugh's Michigan, who they don't have this year?
The two other things that I wanted to point out, and then we can move on here.
Yeah.
On Drew Allar, who we've mentioned just in passing as part of this preview.
Mm-hmm.
Drew was very good last season, and Drew definitely took a step forward under
I agree.
the new offense. It just so happened he played his worst game on the biggest stage. And I'm curious to see now how he continues developing because, to your point, the arm talent's undeniable. And clearly he showed that he's coachable and that he can improve. We saw that last year, but there were still some of those moments throughout the course of the year. It wasn't just in the playoff where he gets a little bit yippy, where I think he wore his heart on his sleeve a little too much. I think he is still growing into this. And so I do think, even though there was some steam on him maybe going pro last year, given the supporting cast that he has this year and given what this team could do, I think it was the right call for him to come back. There's definitely plenty in his game yet that could still be polished up before he decides to go to the next level. So I'm glad to see that he is back. And let me just take a knee for a second.
Please do.
And admire at how ridiculous it is that they got both Nick Singleton and Kaytron Allen to come back. These are two guys, both of whom, by the way, could challenge for the Penn State all-time leading rushing record. And they're in the same backfield, which is a bonker stat that my friend Brett, our friend Brett Cianca from Pick Six Previews pointed out in his publication. Just crazy that that's even possible. But this is the kind of offense that we're looking at this year for Penn State. And it's there. I jotted down. It's James Franklin's Phil Collins moment. He's been waiting for this moment for all his life.
Yes, she's cheated on me with 5 different guys, but I think this time it's going to be different. This time it's going to be different.
I've got them at 11-1. I think they beat your Oregon Ducks. I think they lose on the road to Ohio State. I think they get revenge on Ohio State in the Big Ten title.
Okay. I think that's a reasonable way to approach this. Yeah, I mean, Allar wasn't great in the Oregon game either. He made some incredible throws, but there was a back-breaking pick. He missed a couple of big throws, big moment throws. So I think it's good for him to come back.
Should be the year. This should be the year.
Yep. All right. We agree.
Let's go to your America's,
Yeah, of course.
Oregon's Ducks. 13-1 last season, 9-0 in conference. They also have an over-under of 10.5 this season, as do both Penn State and Ohio State. Oregon notably won the Big Ten in their first season, lost to Ohio State, the playoff game, which, we can get into that in a little bit here. But
didn't start out super well for Oregon.
It really didn't.
It got a little bit better, but not much better. Yeah.
The starting point for Oregon in this team is undeniably solid. Undeniably solid. It's one of the best front sevens in college football. They're really, really good along the defensive line. I think that's going to dictate a lot. I look at this schedule. There are like 7 teams that aren't going to be able to handle any of that. They're going to be outmatched.
Mm-hmm.
Then you mix in an offensive line. It's got some new faces, but a lot of experience that comes from elsewhere. Isaiah World is the big left tackle from Nevada. He's a really good example. I think the line looks really solid.
Mm-hmm.
I think on some level, Oregon kind of has some of the same questions as Penn State. Okay. Receiver room, maybe not to the same depths as Penn State, given where they've been. But Evan Stewart goes down, presumably for the year. Is it a patellar tendon? Is that what
That's the rumor. I don't know exactly the length of time, but I think that is not the worst assumption that it's going to be a long time.
So, I like Corey Moore, but I think there is a bigger question about the receiver room and if guys like Malik Benson from Florida State and Alabama, if he can step up and be more of a presence. There is a question, I think, in the secondary. You got some new faces back there. My guy Dylan Thieneman is one of them, Purdue, who I think is a superstar. But they got to pull that together pretty quickly in the back. And, of course, there's a question of Dante Moore. Like, I don't think you're going to get Dylan Gabriel production in year one under Dante Moore.
Right.
But I also think the ceiling longer term under Dante Moore is probably higher. I think he's a better quarterback or can be a better quarterback than Dylan Gabriel. So You factor all those things together, it's no secret that Oregon is going to be one of the teams that clearly is in the conversation for the conference for the playoff. Notably, they do not play Ohio State or Michigan on the schedule, which is great. They do get Penn State, Iowa, and Washington on the road. So there is ammo on this thing. Where are you at with Oregon relative to the Oregon we saw in 2024?
So Oregon 2024, you look at how they spent. You look at who they brought in along the defensive line, in the secondary, obviously Dylan Gabriel, obviously Evan Stewart. They felt last year was that year. And they still haven't lost a regular season Big Ten game, but they lost to a Big Ten team in the playoff. And it looked like they were poised to go further in the playoff based on what they did during the regular season and in the Big Ten championship game, and they didn't. So they are banking right now on talent. They are banking on Jimmys and Joes. They are banking on redshirt freshmen. They are banking on, obviously, transfers coming in along the offensive line. Bear Alexander is added to the defensive line as sort of a flyer after it didn't really work out at USC or Georgia. But he'll have an opportunity to improve draft stock and finish his career in a better way. Obviously, I think a connection with Dan Lanning from his time at Georgia. They are banking on unproven talent at receiver. They have the archetypes of receivers you would like, right? There's a tall guy. There's a fast guy. There's a short guy. There's a blue chip 5-star.
It's like that old game, the old NES ice hockey game where you could just pick the body types, right? You've got all of them.
Yes, there's a 5-star from 3 years ago who hasn't really worked out yet. There's 4 stars all over the place. But in terms of proven guys, there's not a ton. And that's a big question when you have a quarterback who is unproven as well. Dante Moore is in his 3rd year as a college football player, so that's at least nice. He had a year to learn the system. That's nice. I think you're right about it seems like he has the talent to be an extremely high-end national quarterback. Got to show it. He's got to show it behind a new offensive line. It's a center and I think possibly a left guard who they have who could be starting, but it could be just the center in Pancho Laulu, if I got that right.
Better you than me. I'm definitely botching that one.
Running back room is in good shape. Mekhi Hughes comes in from Tulane. He should be very, very good. He looks like a Greek god at the moment. They've recruited defensive line crazy, crazy well. Not especially worried about it. And they have one of probably the best 3 edge rushers in the country, and Mateo Uiagalelei coming back. They're pretty good at linebacker. They're going to be working in some younger, inexperienced guys. Secondary, you like Dylan Thieneman. They've got a bunch of corners that are green, but seem to have a high ceiling, and we'll see at the other safety spot. So there are a lot of questions for this Oregon team. They've recruited crazy, crazy well. They are deep with potential, but they're trying to win a national championship. And I think that's going to be sort of a bridge too far this season. I think there are times where they're going to look excellent, where they might look like the best team in the country, where they go to State College and beat them by 13 points and then lose something stupid. All of that is on the table. I'm not banking on it, but I think the potential is there to look like absolute world beaters one week and then crater back down to earth another week. And so I don't have them in the Big Ten championship game. I don't have them losing more than 2. No. I think it's very hard to find 2 losses or more than 2 losses. And even 2 losses might be tricky because what you're counting on is a team with there being a gulf of talent between Oregon and another team, and that other team being able to overcome it.
Right.
And so it's really just Penn State that roster for roster can hang with Oregon on this schedule. But what happens with too many variables is you just have that 17-14 loss. Dan Lanning's been pretty good in close games sometimes. Those Washington games weren't great.
I was going to say, let's not talk about the Washington games.
Bo Nix got hurt in one of them, let's be clear.
Sure.
But Oregon's in a good place. Oregon's in a really, really, really good place. And if something happens to a quarterback here or there, Oregon has time to figure things out. And by the time they get to November, these aren't going to be new players anymore.
Right.
A lot of these guys have played rotation minutes at defensive line. They have coaching consistency with Will Stein on offense and Tosh Lupoy calling the defense and Chris Hampton back there. Like, there's a lot to really, really like about this Oregon team. They just can't crap the bed against a team like Ohio State if they end up in that position again.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, the schedule, I think, is advantageous. And
I think it's pretty good.
To the earlier point, I mean, I'm looking at this thing, and there are teams that just will not be able to match up with what they've got on defense, their front seven. And yeah, there's some new names and new faces, I think, in the back seven. But taken in totality, the front seven is going to be ferocious. And there are teams on here like Rutgers. You think Rutgers is going to be able to do anything against that? I don't. Even Iowa. No. I like Iowa. I like Iowa a lot. We'll talk about them on the next episode. I think there's a lot to like about Iowa. But, even some of the higher end, like mid-tier teams are really going to have their hands full trying to move the ball on these guys because they're so good up front. So if that is your starting point, even if you have other new names elsewhere, even if it's on the other side of the ball on offense, just having that bedrock of a defensive line that's going to dictate the point of attack when you've, knock out the ball when you're playing defense, that is such a huge card that you can play that's going to come, right, I think, more often than not back in your favor.
And look, and the important thing, too, is when you look at where this roster is, look at where the coaches and people behind the program decided they needed to spend money in the portal. It wasn't at receiver. No,
it wasn't. That's a good point.
It wasn't. They have a backup tight end coming in from Louisville. Like, they needed help in the secondary, especially at safety. They felt like they could use at least depth along the defensive line. They didn't go after it at linebacker. They feel pretty good about this roster, it seems, that this is an 11-win roster. And once you get there and once you get to the playoff, if it comes together and you're 11-1, anything can happen.
We'll put together playoff predictions a little bit later on in the preview game for us here once we get through all of the conferences and preview all of the teams. And at that point, we'll give you predictions. I suspect that Oregon's going to be one of those playoff teams, but don't want to put words in your mouth. We'll get there when we get there. Yep. Should, again, be a very, very good team. Just might be a bit of a step back, and I think if so, that's not necessarily a black eye. That's sort of just reality.
For your consideration on any podcast player, search Solid Verbal, find us, and hit follow or subscribe. It's just that easy.
Let's move on, and let's talk about your...
This is not
your Michigan Wolverines now.
Yeah.
Michigan was 8-5 a year ago. They've got an 8.5 over-under this season. They also are one of the teams that you and I tend to disagree the most on this year.
This is true.
You've got Michigan 4th in the conference. I think I've got them all the way down at 7th. But the margin between 4 and 7, with the way that we talked it through on part 1, was very, very thin. This is not to say Michigan's going to be a bad team. This is just to say that, the way things work out, I favored some of those other teams finishing higher.
Beat Ohio State and Alabama to finish your season and tie Shania Twain's you with that don't impress him much.
I didn't say it didn't impress me. It actually impressed me a lot.
7th place.
I still can't figure out how the hell they beat Ohio State, so I got to give them a lot of credit for that.
A timely interception at a very good part of the field.
I guess, but man, that upset to me, we did the episode this offseason talking through like an upset bracket.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't that one win? I think that one won.
Yeah, of
it
course.
was preposterous that they would win that game, but they did.
Yeah.
And kudos to them for figuring out a way to do it on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, last season was not a typical Michigan season. And it was just so easy to dunk on the offense. They had zero passing attack. It made the running game very predictable and telegraphed.
No, they had a one-player passing attack. He played tight end, and the hope was that he was healthy, and he could always get open. He could always make catches. But beyond that, you're right.
But what I like about this team, and what I think we saw in full display clearly in that Ohio State game, to quote the wise prophet, Dr. Ian Malcolm, I don't know if you've got the sound, Dan. Do you have the sound?
I think I do. Do you want me to play it first?
Play it right now.
I'm simply saying that life finds a way.
Sharon Moore found a way, Dan. Found a way to get to 7 wins.
True.
Found a way to beat USC in the regular season, to beat Alabama in the bowl, obviously to beat Ohio State in the biggest game of the year. Building off of that now, Michigan's got some real, I think, wind at its back. This is a team that undeniably is better now than they were a year ago. There are a lot of new faces on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Which we got to talk through. But this is a team that, again, is going to be loaded by a defense, or let's say led by a defense that's loaded in the front 7.
It seems to be that way, yeah.
And ultimately, we're going to have to determine the ceiling based on how long it takes the offense to get sorted out. That's the general vibe, I think, of this Michigan team.
Agree.
Let's start with quarterback, though. Last season, the musical chairs at quarterback were very, very difficult to watch, I would imagine, if you're a Michigan fan, because it just was not happening with any of them. You had one guy who got hurt, another guy who couldn't throw. It just seemed like it was never going to come together, and it was frustrating to watch. This year now, they went out, they get Bryce Underwood. Bryce Underwood's a top overall recruit. He's an in-state kid. For a moment, looked like he was going elsewhere. They flipped him back to Michigan, and now he is all the rage.
Mm-hmm.
The comparison that we heard when we had Brendan Huffman on this show was Vince Young.
Okay.
Which is a pretty high bar to clear. That's a pretty high bar to clear.
I think it was more physically what he could be because he's so physically mature.
Even still.
Yeah.
Even still, if the biggest source of optimism, I think, this year for Michigan has to be Bryce Underwood. He's basically gotten all the first team reps. You've seen the pictures of him out there. He's a full-on man. And if Vince Young is a comparison, even if it's just on the physical side of things, you'll take that. Given where coming from Alex Orji and Davis Warren, you'll take a Vince Young prototype.
Sure.
Why do you feel so good about this team? Because I've got him at 8-4, which I don't think is bad given the schedule and given the circumstances. But
right.
You've got Michigan as your 4th best team in the Big Ten. Why?
It's just sort of process of elimination. I think the defense is going to be very good, especially up front, like you talked about, with not a ton of experience along the defensive line, but they've recruited there well. They've portaled in there well. There's experience at linebacker. Not a ton of experience in the secondary. I think it's Jair Hill had sort of up and down year at corner. Rod Moore comes back. He was hurt last year. And I don't know. There's continuity on defense enough to the point where I feel better about Michigan's defense than either side of the ball of teams like, for you, Nebraska, Illinois, Indiana, stuff like that. So I'm just comparing against who else could fit into that spot. Offensively, new look offensive line, bring in some portal guys at running back and receiver. I don't think they're going to be humongous difference makers at receiver, but I think it'll be an upgrade. I'm not counting on a ton from Bryce Underwood.
No?
If he starts the season at quarterback. I think it's unfair to do that to true freshmen. We see this year in and year out. Like, even the good ones, even the really good ones, Trevor Lawrence, whoever you want to say, Sam Howell at North Carolina. Sam Howell had growing pains, and he had, I think, a roster around him that was better, a rushing attack that was probably better and going to give him more time and room to maneuver. Michigan, what is this offense going to look like under a new coordinator in Chip Lindsey, right? So you have like the preferred smash ball, hardball of Sharon Moore, coupled with a dual threat in Bryce Underwood, who has no experience, and you don't have the depth at, say, experience at tight end or along the offensive line. How are you going to marry a more green, questionable offensive line with a preferred style of play? It can either go really, really well, that you're sticking with your vision through thick and thin, or you're stubborn and you're not putting your players in the best position to win given their skill set.
Right.
That's the challenge that Chip Lindsey has right now.
Yeah.
So we're talking about new questions for the offensive line, new questions for quarterback, new questions for skill talent. And yet, I still feel pretty good, all things considered, because of this defense. That they can win a bunch of games ugly, that they can complete 3rd and 7s to tight ends, which they couldn't always do last year, that if those offensive linemen, and I think there's a couple portal additions, they've recruited offensive line, which of course they have really well, that they can start to dictate. I don't know if it'll happen at Oklahoma. That's on the road. I don't think it's going to happen there. But I think come October 1, if the offensive line comes together, which I think it should be able to do, with some sort of mix of experience, youth, and portal, then things open up for Michigan. You get a little more experience at quarterback, whether or not it's Mikey Keene, who didn't play in the spring, some sort of undisclosed upper body injury. We've all had undisclosed upper body injuries, Ty. I just think it's unfair to put it on Bryce Underwood. Be like, yep, we're paying you all this money, and we need you to play like a third-year starting quarterback. So I don't have them competing with the best of the conference, but I still feel like they're in a gray area between the best of the conference and teams that are just not fielding a side of the ball that are immediately obvious to me that are as good as what Michigan's defense could be.
I mean, on the point of the offensive line, I think it's a really good one. And the quarterback play obviously gets a lot of the attention from last year because there just was no passing game. But statistically, the running game sort of took a step back too. And that was a function of the offensive line. The offensive line didn't just collapse out of nowhere. This was basically an entirely new unit last year because the previous guys went, like 6 guys went to the NFL from the offensive line. So the running game takes a step back. The passing offense, non-existent. That, I think, has set the stage now for where we find ourselves in 2025, which is new offensive coordinator Chip Lindsey, who's going to try to blend some of the power stuff with the spread stuff, new quarterback in Bryce Underwood, draw whatever comparison you want. The risk to me, though, in addition to all those new names, this is a schedule that if the offense can't get going quickly enough, granted the defense is still in place, I don't think a 3-4 start is totally off the table.
Walk me through it.
I mean, road games at Oklahoma, at Nebraska, and at USC are all losable.
Okay.
I think Washington is also a losable game, though that one is at home.
They lost last year. Yeah.
Lost that one last year. That takes you through like the first 7 games of the season. If you go beyond that, you've got a Michigan State game, which is a rivalry. They should be better than Michigan State, but Michigan State played them tight last year. The very next week, again, is that Michigan State game after Washington, so who knows? And then I think they probably lose later in the year to Ohio State. I think this is the year Ohio State gets one up on them. So that's where I come down on this team. I don't know exactly how it ends up stacking up. I'm not expecting the 3-4 start. I'm just saying, given what they've got here, I could probably make a case for it. I still think it's an 8-4 team. I think it's an 8-4 team that's way better on offense. I don't yet think they're a real contender for the conference, but you could absolutely convince me that they're, 4th, 5th best team in the conference. I would have no trouble believing that.
I do kind of hate the idea of a true freshman starting as much as you're paying for Bryce Underwood to play football though, right? If you're a Michigan booster, if you're the Michigan pro, I don't love that. I'd much rather him start sometime in October and give this to Mikey Keene immediately.
Well,
just give him mental reps.
Listen,
I don't know.
He's the guy they're rolling with and the guy they're excited about. And if you've got a talent like that, we're also not there in practice seeing what this guy can do. And based on those reports, everybody is pretty convinced that Bryce Underwood is the truth. So we'll see what he can do, but he's going to have his work cut out for him because I don't think it's an easy start to the schedule.
No, not at all. No, I like Michigan this year. I do like Michigan. I don't love them. I'm exceedingly curious to see what their plan is against Oklahoma in, what is that, week 2?
Week 2 on the road.
Depends who's starting. It depends, what kind of leash does Bryce Underwood have? How open is that playbook? How sort of trusted is he to take shots downfield?
Yeah.
Like, who are you counting on to take shots downfield too? Donovan McCulley left the Indiana program after a month last year. Good. Tall guy. Who are those guys?
Tall guy. Yeah.
He's a tall guy. He's like 6'5".
Yeah.
You can fact check me on that, by the way, after this show has gotten some heights wrong.
I think 6'4" is the number that comes to mind.
6'4".
But that's pretty close.
Tall enough.
All right. Moving on, you and I flip-flopped on Indiana and Illinois. I think
Yes.
I had Illinois a little bit higher. You had Indiana a little bit higher. Let's start with Illinois, though, because Illinois is another one of those teams where if you've been paying any attention to some of the way too early top 25 polls that have been floating around for the last 6 months, Illinois is one of those teams. My first memory of that this offseason was seeing a poll that I think Ari put out, Ari Wasserman from On3, where he had Illinois 13th. And then afterwards, I saw a bunch of other people putting Illinois in the top 15. Kind of sat up in my chair a little bit. Not to say that Illinois isn't a good team, but Illinois is not a team that I'm used to seeing that high.
Right.
They did win 10 games last year, 10-3. First time since 2001 under Ron Turner. It was a good year. They went 5-1 in one-score games. They came from behind in the fourth quarter of all of those wins. So they were battle-tested, at least down the stretch. The caveat is that our friend Bill Connolly from ESPN, his second-order win stat said that Illinois was about 2 games worse than its record. So the implication there, if you don't speak metrics the way Dan and I tend to, the implication is that there was some fool's gold with Illinois last season, which, if you watched them, I think that's fair. But this year now, Illinois basically brings back the whole team. And they've got a couple starters that come over from, I think it's Wisconsin's defense as well.
Yep.
Peeled a couple of those guys off. There was a heavy emphasis this offseason in keeping the guys on the roster that they had, which they did successfully, and is what sets up this whole thing. This is probably the best team that Bielema's had at his time at Illinois.
Yes.
And it's probably not even close. So there's a lot to like there. Their over-under, though, is just 7.5. So there's an obvious point of conflict. How people are viewing Illinois, bigger picture in the national conversation, versus how our friends in the desert are viewing Illinois, putting a 7.5 number on these guys.
Right.
Which side of that number do you come down on?
I still think I would take the over. I think they're an 8-4 type program. The schedule is tricky, but not crazy. They have Duke early on in the season.
Week
but
2.
They
a very
host
quiet, important game in week 2.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Should be great. The case for Illinois is the amount of experience that they bring back, the seasoned nature of Luke Altmaier, that he took such an impressive leap last year, the connection he had with those receivers. There's no reason he can't forge that same connection with this year's receivers, as good as Zachary Franklin and Pat Bryant were. Somebody had to throw them the balls, and Luke Altmaier did a great job. He was great in big moments. He led drives at the end of game-winning drives at the end of games. They won close games. You'd much rather win close games than lose close games. There's a big take that, I say winning is a skill. Winning is a skill that Illinois possessed last year. They won close games late, and they did it consistently, and that's great. I don't say that to, pat them on the head. There are a number of coaches who came nowhere near what Brett Bielema and his staff were able to do at the end of close games last year. Defensively, they return a ton of talent, even though they're rebuilding sort of what they are up front. That, against the pass, they were good. They weren't a good third down team.
They weren't a good third down team. The pass rush was non-existent.
Yeah, right.
But you look at this year's team and you're right. The entire back seven is back.
And new guys up front. So if the pass rush couldn't get much worse, it'll get better if these guys are a little bit better. And that this is another year of experienced guys playing against Big Ten opponents, right? That there's not a lot of teams in the country who can boast the type of seniority that Illinois brings to the table. The case against Illinois, which I outlined.
Do we have to, should we go flaw finder?
All right, I'm going to introduce my flaw finder, okay?
What's the case?
Yes. They had to beat a number of very average to not so good teams in those close games last year. They needed every minute of games against, take your pick, right? Against Purdue, one of the worst teams we've seen in the modern era. And so that is troubling to me that there were this many close games against teams like that, and that they needed, every second of the game against Nebraska, who struggled tremendously last year. That they won a lot of those games because of that specific firepower out wide, specifically Pat Bryant, and he's gone. And so year over year, do you keep finding somebody with that type of ceiling? Hopefully. Schedule's just tougher this year, Ty. The schedule is just tougher than where it was last season. And I think a lot of the teams on this schedule are built in a way that can take advantage of perhaps another lackluster rush defense, perhaps, not being able to stretch the field, perhaps not being as deep at running back. Although they get healthier running back, they lose Josh McCray. It's a lot to ask Illinois to get to 9 or 10 wins again without adding obvious playmakers that are gravitational on either side of the ball or are just problems consistently. I think Illinois is what do we call it? The Hall of Good is not the Hall of Fame. Right? There's a lot of Hall of Good to this team. I don't know. To win 10 games 2 years in a row, I think I want to use the word stacked more than I feel inclined to do right now. And I love using the word stacked, Ty. You know that about me.
Of course. Look, the engine for the offense is the line, which is going to bring back 5 guys, as well as Luke Altmaier, who had a good year last year. Definitely took a leap, and he's a gamer. I still don't fully understand his hair, but that's a separate conversation. Okay. It'll be interesting to see how they use him this year because, to your point, Pat Bryant, Sakari Franklin gone out wide. They're not going to be able to snap their fingers and just replace 1,600 yards. So the conventional wisdom is they're going to lean more on the ground game. You did mention losing McCray to Georgia, but Caden Fagan still there. Aiden Lawford is still there.
Year, but yeah.
Khalil Valentine, they're in the backfield as well. The best Bielema teams have played this style of football, which is really dependent on the ground and pound. Right. So even if there is something of a shift, I'm not too worried about them being able to adapt and play it. They just got to stay healthy, to be honest with you. There are some real durability concerns about the guys that got in the backfield. And if we start seeing guys go down, if that eats into how they want to play this year because of limitations elsewhere, that's where I think it could get interesting. This is me splitting hairs, though. I've got Illinois as a 9 or 10 win team this year. And I did not expect to be that high on the Illini this year. I do think the Ohio State game's a loss. That one's at home. But as I look up and down the schedule, I see a bunch of teams on here that I think they can handle. And I think truly in this day and age, in the portal era, having guys that have been on the roster, that are familiar with the system, having some stability. We say it all the time. Stability is currency. And Illinois is probably a really good test of that this season.
Agree.
Because they're going to have a lot of guys back and guys who were part of those games last season where they were in those tight spots against maybe teams that they shouldn't have been. That builds character to win those games, to come out on the other side of it. We've talked about countless others here through preview season that were not as fortunate. So winning is a skill. These guys were part of it last season, and now a lot of them are back. I like Illinois. I've got Illinois, what did I say, 4th? I think I've got them 4th in the conference this year.
Right.
I like what they've got coming back. I'm curious to see what the ceiling is. I don't know if we fully know what it is yet.
They just have more losable games on this schedule. That's the difference to me. That Duke is on there, Indiana's on there, USC is on there, Washington is on there, Wisconsin's on the road. It's just, I don't know. I think you need some of those breaks to win those close games, and to ask for it 2 years in a row is a lot. And I think they're good. Can you imagine a universe in which an Illinois fan is bummed out that somebody said a worst case scenario, or they're not super high on them, they're only going to win 8 games?
Oh my God. I mean, Dan, for the vast majority of the time you and I have been doing this show, the drive for 6 was something that we attributed to Illinois. That was the joke. So now, given the fact that they're here now, I'm talking about them fourth in a ginormous conference with 18 teams. They won 10 games a year ago. I am really inclined to go over 7.5. I don't see 5 losses on the schedule, even if there is something of a step back. I feel pretty good. I like what I see.
The Indiana game, must-see TV.
Oh, well, let's go to Indiana then.
Okay.
That game is in week 4, by the way, and it is in Bloomington. Indiana Hoosiers, 11-2 last year, like the belle of the ball. Everybody was talking about Indiana, whether you are a Big Ten fan, a curious Indiana fan, a curious college football fan, or a pissed off SEC fan. Indiana had a little something for everybody. Okay. Sure. They again went to the portal. The difference this time being that they were actually getting power conference starters to come in and play for this team, as opposed to a year ago where it was a lot of small school guys trying to get them to come up, see if we can get the most out of them. To Curt Cignetti's credit, I think he did that. He absolutely did that. That's the only way you can win 11 games and get into the playoff. There is enough starting experience on this lineup, I think, again, to make another run. I don't think they will, but there is enough here to at least give it a go. I love Fernando Mendoza.
It's on the record.
I do. I love the guy. I think he's incredible. He's a big kid. He's a legit pro prospect. I like pairing him up with Roman Hemby, who they bring over from Maryland to play running back. I think they did a good job improving the offensive line. They've got their top 2 pass catchers back. They're a little thinner at wide receiver, but they still have, I think, a fair amount of upside there. The offense looks loaded to me again. And I think there's a good chance that we see Indiana in a bunch of weird shootouts this season. I don't think the defense is going to be as good, even though they've got stars at all 3 levels. I think the defense, in all likelihood, takes a little bit of a step back. But
sure,
the offense is in a really, really good spot. The guys they brought in, I think, just relative to where they were at a year ago, you should have fewer questions about their ability to contend on this level. And I'm pretty excited about it. I don't know what it means to lose a guy like Tino Sunseri off the staff, turning things over to a new OC. But I like where they're at. I like the talent that's on hand.
To be clear, last year's starting quarterback Curtis Rourke and this year's starting quarterback Fernando Mendoza are ready-made products. So he is not going to be tasked with, or the replacement for Tino Sunseri is not going to be tasked with, okay, welcome to school. Here's where your dorm is. Here's what time practice starts. Here's how you lift weights, right? None of that is applicable, which is great in terms of continuity. And they should be in a really good place. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but continue.
No, you didn't. I mean, I think all that's true. Now, the defense last year was actually, I think, more of the story, even though it didn't get all the headlines. This is the defense that jumped up 63 spots in the SP+. They finished as a top 10 defense. This year, they have 3 legit stars at all 3 levels. They've got Mikhail Camara on the line, Aiden Fisher at linebacker, D'Angelo Pons is kind of like their shutdown corner. They do need to replace pretty much everybody else, though. And that's where I come down on the defense, saying,
sure.
Well, I'm not sure the defense is better. It probably is marginally worse. But if your starting point from last season was a top 10 defense, if they were able to make that big a stride, I'm probably splitting hairs here. It'll still be a pretty good unit. They're going to be fine on defense.
They portal in key guys on defense. We'll see what that works out. You're right about the starting point. They were among the best teams against the run last year. They were among the best teams against the pass last year, which meant they were amongst the best defenses in the country in year 1 last year. So the proof of concept is there. Defense, obviously, you're dependent on talent. You're dependent on space eaters. You're depending on guys tackling in a scrum. You're dependent on, great coverage. You're depending on safeties, reading things, linebackers going sideline to sideline, of course. But again, that's the starting point. The starting point is confidence in what you were able to do in year 1 and getting buy-in because guys saw what Indiana was able to accomplish with no time. And so, yes, the schedule is harder. Yes, the schedule wasn't incredible last year. All of that is correct. But if that's the starting point for the defense, that there's buy-in, there's portal, there's development from this staff, and there's, attitude from Curt Cignetti on down that we're going to eat people. That's what we're going to do.
See, that's the other side of this, man. He brought a swagger. My hunch is that Curt Cignetti may not be the nicest guy to hang around.
It seems okay to me, but yeah.
But Curt Cignetti definitely has a pretty hard edge to him. And he came in there. I think he established himself right away on the basketball court. What did he say? Purdue sucks? Something like that?
Wasn't wrong.
No, he wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong.
Last year, anyway. Yeah.
He came in like a ball of fire. He coached his ass off last season, and he got this team into the playoffs against Notre Dame.
Yeah.
It was an incredible first year, for Kurt Sigday. Now, the schedule's harder this year.
Of course.
You mentioned the Illinois game. That's a big one in week 4, but it's at home. They also are on the road at Iowa, on the road at your Oregon Ducks, on the road at my Penn State Nittany Lions. So it's a different conversation than a year ago for Indiana, where everybody was dunking on the schedule. The schedule's harder. Not the hardest schedule in the world, but it's harder. I still think this is a 9-win team. I really do. I think that week 4 game against Illinois is quietly a monster.
Yeah.
That more people should be talking about even now. Should be a ton of fun. But this is a 9-win team.
It seems like a 9-win team. It seems like absolutely a 9-win team that I think culturally has already taken a huge leap. And I don't know. There is something about this being year 2 where, maybe it's not where it was last year, but nobody knew anything about what this team was going to be externally going into the year. And now people are going to give Indiana better shots, right? Indiana's going to hold it more attention in the conference. But like, how many of these teams beyond, who did you say, Oregon and Penn State?
Right.
How many of these teams are truly built so that you're confident that they're better than Indiana? That's not something we could ever say.
Confident? No. I mean,
if Indiana is merely good, it's kind of just that Illinois game, which they play at home, being the difference between 9 and 10 wins.
In all likelihood, yeah.
It's pretty good.
They're in a good spot. I mean, talk about the modern experiment with using the portal to great avail to reboot a program very quickly. We'll talk about Purdue here in a minute. Purdue is I don't think, going to be able to do what Indiana did last year, but whenever you take in 54 transfers,
that's true.
You're basically a shell of your former self. It's an entirely new team, an entirely new cast of characters. So Indiana,
is there one thing you specifically worry about with Indiana that you're like, I want to see this be addressed beyond obviously their losses, or anything that you saw out of Indiana last year where you're like, yeah, they're really good, but this was an issue?
I still at times question the explosivity in the passing game, which they were fine with.
That's exactly what I was going to say. There's just sloppiness at times. The drops.
Yeah, they were fine statistically over the long haul.
Yeah, totally.
But I'm thinking back to like some of the bigger games that we saw Indiana play in, notably that Notre Dame game in the playoff, and it was just like, I was never that confident that they were going to be able to go downfield through the air.
Right.
Even though they had a good quarterback and they have good receivers, but it didn't feel like a big enough threat to me that they were going to be able to win that game. So I'd point to that, and also just all the new faces on defense.
And it was both a torn ACL and like a broken thumb or something for Curtis Rourke, if I remember correctly, because that's what he missed time with. He missed the Washington game, which they only won by 14 points, I think, with Taven Jackson. But yeah, you're not wrong. If they're able to stretch the field while working, I think it's Roman Hemby coming in at running back.
Love Roman
from
Hemby.
Maryland.
I like that move. I like some of these guys that they got. I think they did a really, really good job again tapping into the portal to get high level talent that can come in and play right away. Fernando Mendoza is a stud. He's an absolute stud, and he's going to show it this year on a better team. Everybody's going to see it. If you didn't know it before, you're going to know it now.
Yeah. No, I think Curt Cignetti is a businessman. I think that he gets people in that corporate mindset of just take care of business every single play.
Yeah. He's the computer from the Bear. He's just emotionless, but he's looking at data and he knows what he needs to do next.
I don't know if I fully understand that reference. I haven't watched the current season.
You should watch the current season. I like it.
Is it good? Does it have a plot this time?
We just finished it. I liked it.
Okay. Well, the only Bear in question here is Fernando Mendoza. Cal Bear coming over to Bloomington IN.
That's a pro's pro over there in Chicago, Illinois.
Yeah.
We got 3 teams left here. We got Maryland, we got Northwestern, and we got Purdue.
Okay. Let's roll.
I can roll through all three if you want me to. I can give you my presentation.
No. Let's be more respectful.
I want to start with Maryland, though. And Maryland was 4-8 last year. They won one game in conference. Their win
Who was
total,
it against?
What's that?
Who was it against?
Oh, gosh, don't quiz me.
USC, of course.
USC, that's right. And we predicted it. I think I predicted it on the show.
Did you? Okay, good for you.
I'm pretty sure I did with the point spread, not outright.
Okay, that's something.
The over-under is 4.5 this season for the Terrapins. Maryland's not going to be good this year.
Okay.
They're not going to be good. The case I am making, though, right now to the Verballerhood is who cares?
Okay.
Who cares?
Continue.
Who cares if they're not any good? That is not the point of this season.
What is the point?
The point of this season...
Vibes.
Well, kind of. I don't know what the vibes are like with respect to the coaching situation
Terps,
right now.
Okay.
But this is a very young team. I looked at the projected lineup. You can go out there and look at it for yourself. There's like 6 seniors on this projected starting lineup.
Okay.
Say whatever you want about Maryland this year. But I think playing a very, very young team always makes you entertaining. Always.
Okay.
It's not always pretty.
No.
But that brings me to my guy, Malik Washington.
Continue.
Who I incorrectly referred to, I believe, as Malik Williams on one of our previous episodes. That's how much I like him. I got his name wrong.
You were all tingled up. Yeah.
4-star true freshman from about a half hour just up the road. He was the number 5 quarterback in this cycle. In the era of the transfer portal, you better damn well believe he's going to get reps right away. You know, if we're going to talk about it with Bryce Underwood, this is, again, the story, I think, with Malik Washington.
I mean, they also lost last year's starting quarterback.
They also lost Billy Edwards Jr. to Wisconsin, who we'll talk about next episode. But I think he's going to get reps right away. He looks very dangerous to me as a runner. Doesn't default to the run, but can do it. The scouting reports basically say that he likes to stay in the pocket and get the job done as a passer. So we'll see what he can do. We've got Nolan Ray at running back, who's young and also a burner. Dorian Fleming, the tight end from Georgia State, looks promising to me. Jaleel Farouk, transferred up from Oklahoma. He might be one of the veterans on this team. He could be the wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think the youth of this team is what makes them pretty damn entertaining. Also, Pep Hamilton is back.
Pep Hamilton is back. Yep.
Back as now the offensive coordinator for Maryland is going to step in as the quarterback coach as well. It's been over a decade since he was calling the offense for Stanford. And I think 7 years since he was a passing game coordinator up at Michigan. So it's been a minute since he was doing stuff like this at the college level. But Pep Hamilton's a name that people know, obviously given his time back at Stanford. This is also the best schedule in the Big Ten. There's no Ohio State. There's no Penn State. There's no Oregon. They do have to fly cross country and play a team like a UCLA in the middle of the season, but they got Wisconsin on here and Rutgers. Illinois, obviously, Illinois is a tough game. But Michigan State on the road in the Big Ten. Like, I just look at this and I say, you're probably not going to do much better than this if you're Maryland. So I like the fact that they've got a roster here that's young, that they can work into this thing, a schedule that I think is relatively manageable. And bigger picture, even if they're lousy this season, I said this on the last episode too, the game is not about getting to 8 wins. The game is not about getting to 6 wins. The game this year is about finding young guys that pop because next year's schedule is murder. It is horrible.
Well, who's going to be coaching next year, too?
I don't know who's coaching next year, but and truly, if there's a coaching change, maybe half these guys leave. But if you assume that it's going to be in-state next season, the schedule gets really, really difficult. So they got to find some dudes they can build around now to make this thing better. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem next year.
Well, there's also a new AD at Maryland.
Yep.
So that changes some calculus. This was, it just was a team that trench-wise was not there last year. Pop-wise was inconsistent on offense. And Mike Loxley talked about this extensively, that he basically lost the locker room. And I think he just was mentioning it at Big Ten Media Days, that culturally they were a mess. And so now you're saying, okay, they're young, they're green, schedule's great, all things considered.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But is this a team built to do the little things necessary to win 6, 7, 8 games? And it doesn't seem to be the case. They were absolutely shelled in the portal. And so, yes, they are relying on youth, like you mentioned. So they could be entertaining at times. I don't believe there's much in the non-conference portion of the schedule, right? It's FAU, Towson, and somebody.
Yeah.
They can get to 6 wins. There are winnable games on here if they figure out how to best use these guys. And they're just, again, are built to be boring. Built to just get off the field on third downs.
Can I introduce a spoiler at this point?
Please do.
They're not getting to 6 wins.
I don't know, man.
6 wins is not happening with this team.
There is something about the Big Ten when you look at this conference. And look, it might also include Maryland. Let's be clear. It's always on the table for 6 offenses to be catastrophically embarrassing.
If they beat FAU, Towson, and Northern Illinois, who's the third non-conference opponent.
Who's, by the way, not everybody beats Northern Illinois, Ty.
Where's my button?
Not talking about this.
Continue.
If I pull those 3 teams out, if we assume that they're 3-0 in those games, they have to pick off 3 of Wisconsin, which is on the road.
Catastrophically embarrassing offense at times last year.
Washington, which I think is going to be really good. That game's at
Pretty
home,
decent
as is
team.
Nebraska, back-to-back weeks.
Yep.
Travel cross-country to UCLA. I guess they could beat UCLA.
Bad offense last year, but now add a new quarterback. Yep.
At home against Indiana.
Really good.
On the road against Rutgers. They might be able to beat Rutgers. Okay. So let's say generously that's 5.
Okay.
At Illinois, I don't think that's a win. Home against Michigan, I don't think that's a win. Michigan State on the road, maybe. So maybe 5 and 7 if we want to be really generous with things. But I can't go any higher than that. I just don't see it.
That's fine.
But again, that's not the point for me. That's not how I am judging this Maryland team.
Michigan State, by the way, has Penn State and Iowa's defenses in consecutive weeks before finishing against Maryland.
Yeah. Okay.
That's just something to monitor. Continue.
I've got them at like 5 and 7 tops. That's where I'm at with this team.
I'm around 5 and 7.
Should we move on to Northwestern?
Let's.
Shout out to our boys, the West Lot Pirates, who we had the pleasure of meeting last year.
We'll see him again this year. I'll see him again this year, hopefully for the Oregon game.
Yeah. When we went to see that Duke versus Northwestern game. Are they playing the Oregon games in the portable stadium, right?
In the portable stadium.
Oh,
September
that's awesome.
4th. I think Big Noon Saturday is going to be there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
The win total is 3.5. I like to look at teams with a 3.5 win total and see if there's upside because they're the fun ones to bet on.
Yeah.
The schedule is murder. Oh, my God.
It's real tough.
Who did this to them? Why did they do this to Northwestern? Why? Oregon, at Penn State, at Nebraska, at USC, home against Michigan, at Illinois. They also open up against Tulane on the road.
So that's Jake Retzlaff in Tulane?
Apparently.
Reportedly. Yeah.
Why'd they do this? It's a shame, too, because I don't hate this roster. I really don't hate the roster. I just think they're going to be overmatched by that schedule.
It's a lot. Look, so it's Preston Stone coming in, and they're hoping to get, like, Peyton Ramsey out of Preston Stone?
At worst, he's competent, okay? He's competent.
We think he broke his leg, wasn't the same, coming back last year, starting for SMU, got benched.
But he should be competent.
He's a real college quarterback, yes.
It's just, I say this again, Northwestern is where these transfers go to die.
Yeah, it's tough.
I was trying to think, when was the last time a transfer quarterback hit at Northwestern? I can't
Peyton
think
Ramsey.
of one.
I mean, Peyton Ramsey was okay.
He was okay.
Yes.
He was okay.
They went to the Big Ten championship game. He was okay enough.
But there just is not a track record for them turning these guys into anything. And I like Preston Stone a lot coming into last season, so I'm very curious to see how it translates here. But I like him. I think the line will be okay. I think this is a team that's going to run the ball with Cam Porter, Joe Hyman. I think they're going to run the clock. I think they're going to play defense.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they did last year. They were 121st nationally in their pace of play. It is a slow brand of football. It forces everyone to be more efficient if they want to win.
Right.
They lost 8 games last year, so there were plenty of teams that were able to make it work. But I think that taken in tandem with a defensive line that should be pretty good. I think it's a solid defense that is able to hold most teams down and at least keep the offense in the game. The problem is just that all but 3 of the teams that are on this schedule are significantly better than where I think Northwestern's at. And those three are Western Illinois, ULM, and I think Purdue, but I'm even not sure about that.
Look, they have the hope of, if they're decent, if they're okay, if they're not terrible, if take your pick of descriptor. they could sneak up on people because of situation.
Yes.
Their schedule is not the worst in terms of timing when they get certain teams and get certain winnable games. That if somebody is overlooking Northwestern after they play Oregon, after they play Ohio State, after they play Iowa, whatever, or before, like look ahead, it's not a full sandwichy schedule, which, by the way, here's a little sneak preview. Purdue's entire schedule is sandwichy and trappy for everybody they play.
Yes.
I have no idea Purdue's going to be good, but they have the opportunity to be a poisonous sandwich. Northwestern has a couple of those spots. And so that's at least something for Northwestern if they are boringly decent and just keep generating first downs on 3rd and 2 and keep getting off the field because it's windy next to the lake, right? That they have the opportunity. I think that type of team generally has a 7-win ceiling, and that's being extremely generous for this schedule. So I have them hitting the over.
Over 3.5. I mean, I still think it's more likely they go 2-10 than 4-8. But
yeah,
I've looked at this a bunch of times now because I like betting over on teams with low win totals.
Right.
And I've done well at it over the years. I just can't do it here.
I mean, keep in mind, even when Northwestern's pretty good, like we know they're pretty good, they're only getting most teams' okayest shot.
Well, that's
right?
true as well. That's true as well.
There's just something built into the Northwestern brand that teams don't necessarily, probably at their detriment, don't necessarily get up for.
Let me throw out a random matchup here, and then we'll move on to Purdue and close this thing out.
Yes.
There is a home game on October 4th against ULM. I don't think ULM is going to be all that great this season, but ULM is going to run the ever-loving crap out of the football.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Northwestern's going to do a lot of the same. We might see them open up a little bit, but this is going to be the brand for both of these schools this year. First off, this game's going to be over in like 2 hours.
Yes.
It's going to be the quickest game all year. I'm going to set a reminder to go in and check how long it takes to finish this game because I think it's just going to be a lot of ground and pound.
Right.
I'm curious to see, though, with that being a week before Northwestern's on the road against a team like Penn State, if ULM gives them a game. It would not surprise me to see ULM make that one very, very close, given their style of play.
Please remember, by the way, that Northwestern is not playing in a college stadium. They are playing in a kind of high school waste management open stadium on the lake, 12 feet from Lake Michigan. And they're playing in Wrigley Field against, I think, Michigan and Minnesota.
Yep.
It's just weird environments, man. Wind, iciness. I don't know.
A little hometown bias over
yes.
there going over 3.5, but
I guess so.
Let's close this thing out with Purdue, Dan.
A brand new bombshell is entering the fella.
I'm ready.
Barry Odom, welcome. Welcome to West Lafayette, Louisiana. He comes over from UNLV, takes over for Ryan Walters. They went 1-11 last season.
Not them.
Not this team. No, definitely not this team.
Not these players, not this coaching staff, this program. Yeah.
This program, yes. 1-11 last season. Their over-under is 2.5 wins this year. Barry Odom, notably, he is the only new coach in the Big Ten this year. Like, what's the strategy, you might ask, when you go 1-11? How about bringing in 69 new players? 54 via the portal, 15 via high school recruiting. That was the most in all of college football. It's not even really Purdue. It's like a Kurt Cignetti situation from a year ago where it's pretty much just Purdue or Indiana in name only.
Right.
You called them the Personaries. I like that, actually.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to give you 3 reasons to be entertained by Purdue this year, okay?
Okay.
First reason, he's got a couple monster teams on the schedule. And it's not good for Purdue to play this team, mind you. But
I thought you were going to say, first of all, you got a monster drum, first and foremost.
Well, the big bass drum is
easily the most entertaining drum in college football.
Clearly. USC, Notre Dame, Illinois, Michigan, Ohio State, Washington, Indiana, all on this schedule. Purdue's probably going to lose all of them, but 4 of them are at home. So if you are a season ticket holder, if you're one of the collection of Purdue fans that email us on the regular to let us know what's going on within that program, you will have your pick of the litter with respect to some better teams, at least on this schedule. So the home schedule's okay, just from a fan standpoint. Just go in there knowing what the expectations are. Secondly, and I guess more specific to the offense, Devin Mockabee back at running back, who's legitimately very good. And I think he's going to need to be with this offense. I think it's going to be a lot on Devin Mockabee. You got an entirely new line of transfers. I think he can take solace in running behind Giordano Vaccaro, Dan. He is their starting center who transfers down from the Manitoba Bisons, where he was 2-time All-Canada.
I like it. Continue.
So you got that. Big Canadian guy up front. Actually, he's not from Canada, but played in Canada. 2-time All-Canada. And then third and finally, they're going to the air raid, apparently.
Again.
Again.
They tried that with Graham Harrell, I believe. Yeah.
Back to the air raid. I have no idea how it's going to work. Their only proven entity on this offense is a running back. Whatever. Wasn't my decision. All right. Looks like it's
Ryan Brown almost beat Illinois.
Ryan Brown almost beat Illinois. Ryan Brown transferred to North Carolina and then back to Purdue.
And came back. Yep.
So it looks like he's going to be the guy. Reasons to be entertained. I think it's more of a curiosity at this point because, again, as we said with North Carolina, how the hell do you handicap?
Oh, yeah.
When you've got over 50 transfers? I have no idea.
Agree.
I'm struggling. I have no
question.
idea. So I would almost be inclined to go over 2.5 on the win total because I don't know if anybody knows anything about Purdue.
Okay, well, we know Barry Odom's a good coach.
Yeah.
We know Josh Henson, their new offensive coordinator, came over from SC, has a background offensive line. I think he's coaching tight ends in the offense this year. Barry Odom brings over Matt Shear?
Yes. Michael Shear.
Mike Shear,
from
excuse
defense, or on the defensive side.
To run the defense from UNLV.
Yep.
And look, Barry Odom's one of the best college defensive coordinators alive. We agree on that, I hope.
Yeah, of course.
So that's a good starting point for Purdue. They have SC after USC plays Clay Helton. That's not an actual trap spot, but it's something. They have Notre Dame as a sandwich between, I think, Notre Dame's SEC portion of the Irish schedule, between A&M and Arkansas. Purdue does, right?
Correct.
I'm not saying these are no I'm just going through the list. Purdue has Illinois the week after SC, the week before Ohio State. No idea what that means. They have Minnesota the week after Minnesota travels to Ohio State. They have Northwestern on the road the week after Northwestern travels to Penn State. Purdue has Rutgers the week after Oregon, the week before Illinois. Purdue has Michigan the week after Michigan plays Michigan State. Purdue has Ohio State. Again, this doesn't mean much, but after Ohio State plays Penn State. Purdue has Washington between Wisconsin and UCLA road games. And Purdue has Indiana. That's a mutual bye. I'm just saying, if you're into erotic sandwich potential, Purdue is your program. There's a lot there.
Erotic sandwich potential. There was a Seinfeld episode about that, wasn't there?
Pastrami, the most erotic of the cured meats. Yes. So Purdue is the pastrami of the Big Ten this year.
I like it. Let's go over.
I'm with you. I'm ready.
Let's go over. We're both going over 2.5 on Purdue this year. What the hell?
Done.
All right.
3-9 Purdue.
Half the 3-9 Purdue gets it done, my man.
They just have to be a snake in the toilet for somebody.
By the way, did you check the email? Some guy sent us an actual snake that he found in a friend's toilet.
It scarred me.
It really scarred me. I didn't write back to him yet. I'm still working up the courage to do so.
I don't think it was a venomous jumping type Cobra-esque snake.
But it was big and black and it had stripes on it. And it was that was a serious snake. Great.
It can slither. You don't want anything slithering near you in that moment.
No. The first person account of that story that he sent us.
Yeah.
I'm glad he made it out. But that scarred me for life, sir. Thank you.
I don't know what you do. I don't know how you move forward with a life after that happens. Anyway. You're just going to sit there exposed every time? All right.
Oh, my God. All right.
Big Ten Part 1.
Michael.
Or Team Part 1.
Michael is his name who sent that in. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Michael.
For scarring us for life, you evil human. Thank you for listening to the show, though. We appreciate it.
It was a good one.
Long episode today. Longer than we've done in a good long time, but we had a lot to discuss. We will be back for part 2 of our team previews, part 3 of our overall Big Ten preview series on our next episode, which drops on Thursday. We've got a lot of fun yet to come. We still got to do the SEC, still got to do Notre Dame. We still have special guests, predictions, things like that. We're turning the corner very shortly into August, and that's when it really starts to hit the fan. So we want to get these out of the way, make sure that you're prepped and ready to go for the season ahead. Hit follow, hit subscribe so that you don't miss any of the episodes. And as Dan, what's your name? Dan?
Dane.
As Dan pointed out earlier, I'm losing my voice here.
No, you're good.
Verballers.com is where you go if you are interested in further supporting what we do.
Agree.
Why don't we leave it there, Dan? Good job today.
Hey, you too.
Gold star. We did well.
Yes.
For that guy over there, Dan, for myself, Ty, thanks for bearing with us here. Hope you got something out of it. We'll talk to you all in the next episode. As always, stay solid.
Peace.